To the October 12th, 2020 Troy City Council meeting. I will call this meeting to order and ask for the roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks? Member Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Very good. We did receive communication from Councilmember Hoderick that she would be unable to attend this meeting this evening as she is out of the county. So I will move that's resolved that Troy City Council hereby excuses the absence of Councilmember Ellen Hoderick at the regular City Council meeting of October 12th, 2020, due to being out of the county.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we excuse the absence of Councilmember Ellen Hoderick from tonight's regular scheduled meeting for the reasons stated in the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes. Motion carries. First on the agenda this evening is certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have one this evening. C1 is a proclamation for Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, October 13th, 2020, and Breast Cancer Awareness Month of October 2020. And I'll be presenting that proclamation this evening. So I have a proclamation for Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, tomorrow, October 13th, and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October 2020, and I will read this into the record. Whereas each year, 200,000,
6 to 10% of these diagnoses are metastatic or stage 4. Another 30% progress from stages 0, 1, 2, and 3 to develop stage 4, maybe immediately or maybe 30 years down the line. And whereas science has very few answers to the reason why cancer metastasizes, and we don't yet have
metastatic growth, what we do know is that a diagnosis of stage 4 breast cancer is not considered survivable, and that almost 40,000 men and women die of it each year. And whereas the breast cancer that kills is often forgotten in the numerous pink ribbon campaigns around the world. Every year, more than 600,000 people around the world die from breast cancer due to metastatic disease. When you die from breast cancer, you die from metastatic breast cancer. The median survival rate of 2 to 3 years for metastatic breast cancer has not changed significantly in decades, and scientific advances for metastatic breast cancer have not kept pace with those for other cancers. And whereas this is what Metaviver is fighting to change, Metaviver's research mission is twofold: to increase awareness about the funding discrepancy that shortchanges metastatic research in the cancer world, and to directly fund the kind of research that is currently lacking. With the primary goal of extending life and ending death from metastatic breast cancer, Metaviver awards grants for research projects that have the potential to shift metastatic breast cancer from a terminal disease to a chronic condition with a decent quality of life. And whereas October 13th is recognized as the official Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, this year over 100 landmarks in all 50 states in the United States, as well as in other countries around the world, will light up in the metastatic breast cancer colors of green, teal, and pink. This is done to shine a light on metastatic breast cancer, the most advanced stage of breast cancer, where the cancer is spread from the breast to other parts of the body. And whereas the pink ribbon is well known for representing the fight against breast cancer, but does not encapsulate the metastatic breast cancer experience, Metaviver designed a base ribbon of green and teal with a thin pink ribbon overlay. The base ribbon of green and teal represents green for the triumph of spring over winter, life over death, renewal, hope, and immortality. Teal symbolizes healing and spirituality, and pink to signify the metastatic cancer originated in the breast. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy hereby proclaims October 13th as Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, and October 2020 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Troy, and joins with Beaumont Children's to honor all childhood cancer survivors for their strength and determination. And be it further resolved that the City of Troy will illuminate City Hall's outside lights used during the holidays from October 1st through the 31st at night in the color pink, the color representing Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and on October 13th at night in the colors of green, teal, and pink, the colors representing Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day. And be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy applauds the hard work of the Metaviver Research and Support Inc. to fund research, raise awareness, advocate for, and provide information and support to people living with metastatic breast cancer. This proclamation is presented this 12th day of October 2020. And I just wanted to add that in honor of October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, some of our local Troy businesses will honor survivors and the lives lost. For example, Pink Out Week with Troy Jazzercise. There will be special classes all week and donations accepted for the Shades of Pink Foundation to help women with breast cancer struggling with their finances. You can check their website. And also for the month of October, Cycle Bar Troy is partnering with Young Survival Coalition in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month and hosting the annual Tour de Pink. Young Survival Coalition strengthens the community, addresses the unique needs, amplifies the voice, and improves the quality of life of young adults affected by breast cancer. So we thank those local businesses who are doing their part to bring awareness and help raise funds, and the many of you out there who are also doing the same. That concludes this evening's special presentations and certificates of recognition. There are no carryover items this evening, no public hearings. So we move on to public comment. As a reminder, as long as we're meeting virtually, public comment can be submitted two ways, either by voicemail to 248-524-3302 or via email at publiccomment@troymi.gov. Again, same rules apply as far as the 3-minute time limit, and I will turn it over to City Clerk Dixon, who will, I believe, both read some into the record and also play some voicemails.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have a number of emails and a few voicemails to go through today. First comment is from David Bemis. I read the agenda backup material regarding getting rid of the Aquatic Center. I read that these city officials have already made up their minds and do not care a bit about the desires of citizens. Waste taxpayer money using propane electric lawnmowers has as much effect as a blank in a hurricane, but not fund something desirable. I am sure they desire the space for something they consider more important, like another hotel. I do not feel served. Comment 2 from Susan LePage. I hope you will fully fund any maintenance or upgrades to the Aquatic Center going forward. I am a property owner in Troy and also have homes and businesses in nearby towns. The Aquatic Center, indoor and outdoor, is a wonderful benefit to the community. It promotes outdoor family fun and provides a meeting place for the community to connect. Please don't let this wonderful gem close. Figure out a way to maintain and improve it and keep it open for years to come. Comment 3 is from Leona Slade. I think the center should stay open. Some of the repair costs could be covered by higher fees, especially for non-residents and day passes on weekends. A notice explaining the cost increases being due to necessary repairs should appear on the Aquatic Center website. The center has been a good thing for the city for a long time and would be greatly missed. Comment 4 from Mary O'Neill. I am a longtime resident of Troy and was so excited that our Troy Library, guided by the director Kathy Russ, has kept the virtual doors open. I have used the online services to read books and magazines and have used the curbside pickup for materials too. I've participated in a focus group to talk about the library millage and also a Zoom conversation with Miss Russ and author, Mr. Zadurian. Both were excellent. The library staff is amazing. Since I work part-time in another library, I am aware of the hard work and outside-the-box thinking that must have occurred to keep patrons connected to their library during the pandemic. I do miss visiting my Troy library in person. First concerns need to be the safety of the staff and patrons. Each encounter with the library, either online or in person, has always been helpful, knowledgeable, and friendly. Our Troy Public Library and the staff are a true treasure for the city. I will support them in any way I can. Comment 5 is from Renish Nishai. At the last council meeting, I took the opportunity as a Troy resident and business owner to share my thoughts with respect to policies of our city attorney. Specifically, I addressed the policies towards the low-level traffic offenses and their impact on minorities and the poor. I am happy to see that the city attorney took the time to respond, as I think this is an important conversation for all of us to have. I am nonetheless dismayed at the city attorney's report written in response. The city attorney labels my comments as, quote, accusations, unquote. She chose to identify me not merely as a citizen and business owner in Troy, but rather as the prosecuting attorney for Clausen. In taking my comments as accusations, she believes they were directed at her personally. This is obviously not the case. My comments were designed only to make this council aware of their responsibility for the policies of the city attorney's office. Her report gives the appearance that she is unwilling to hear constructive criticism. Those of us representing municipalities are guardians of the public trust and should never treat our positions as personal domains. Nevertheless, I would never bring scrutiny upon anyone that I am myself unable to beat. That is why, at the same time that I have offered public comments to you on this topic, I addressed similar comments to the Clausen City Council, who do employ me as their city attorney and prosecutor, asking them to hold me to account. Of the council, I asked several things. First, I asked council members to consider how the application of the law related to minor offenses affects the lives of our family members, friends, neighbors, and all residents of the city. Next, I asked council members to consider if justice is found in prosecuting our citizens criminally for low-level violations, such as building code violations, insurance infractions, license issues, and the like. Finally, I asked council members to consider the responsibility they assumed upon winning their elections. I asked them as elected representatives to demand accountability of those who prosecute in their name and to allow me to begin a conversation with them and update of some of our ordinances to end the prosecutions that do little and make criminals of our citizens. So I'm once again asking the Troy City Council to embody the integrity they dedicated themselves to earlier this year when, in the shadow of the Black Lives Movement, let's have a conversation about our city attorney's policies as they relate to enforcement of minor criminal offenses which disproportionately affect minorities and the poor. To that end, I believe you should begin the conversation with the following questions. Has the Troy City Council ever had a meaningful public review of the city attorney's policies on prosecution and concomitant prosecutorial discretion? When has the city attorney opted to not seek a prosecution? By what standard did she opt out of prosecuting someone and why? Should our ordinances be lessened or altered so Troy is no longer making criminals out of citizens for anything less than significant reasons? I believe these questions are the start of conversation that will lead to significant reforms and make our city more just. Thank you for your time and consideration. Next comment is from Michael Shen. This is to request waive of any late payment related charged fees to our account for the 2020 summer tax. I have paid the tax. The reason for paying it late was that I am unemployed due to this COVID pandemic, which actually affects many families in Troy. I suggest the city of Troy to extend the deadline for the payment at least to the end of this year, 2020. You may be aware of that in this COVID-19 situation, Americans override or adjust all current policies. Do you hear some changed policies like moratorium on evictions, relief of mortgage payments, and so on in the state's courts and government levels? What would the city of Troy do to respond? As a city resident, we would like to hear and see your action in a same way to help Americans in this COVID-19. We did note that the city offices have been closed for a long time due to this COVID-19. As the citizens, we realize that although it is inconvenient to Troy residents, we support this. However, we indicate that to extend the payment date is much more meaningful to compare the close of city offices, as you can see and learn from above subject actions in other states and government authorities. Next comment is from the Haddad family. My name is Rima Haddad. My husband and I have been residents of Troy since 2012, and in 2016, my husband moved his office here. Despite our families wanting to be closer to them in surrounding cities, our home has always been in Troy, from our humble beginnings in Somerset Park to renting a home on Crooks and finally finding our forever home in 2015 on Timberwick. In 2017, we welcomed a baby boy to our family, and ever since then, we have been family season pass holders at the Aquatic Center. Before that, we would pay the daily fee whenever we needed a break from the heat or when we'd have family and friends visiting. A couple years in a row, we took our dog to the dog swim, but we quickly learned that he's more of a cat because he did not like the water. Being a loyal resident, I wouldn't want to see the city operate at a loss, and while I know it might not be a priority, I just wanted to voice my opinion that the Aquatic Center should remain open. Our son was so disappointed that he couldn't show his new baby brother the water park this year, to which he quickly replied, "I hate Corona, don't we all, little guy?" And I'd hate to have to tell him the water park is gone forever. Speaking for myself and my family, I would be willing to pay an increased member fee to help keep the facility open. Beechwood has a waiting list for their membership, which is way more expensive than the Aquatic Center with less amenities, so there is some sort of demand for a facility like this. I honestly can't think of a time except maybe during the week or workday that I went to the Aquatic Center and it wasn't packed with people. Other surrounding cities have similar facilities, and most of them are even a little more updated. But the familiarity and having one so close by has been great for my family, and I'm sure many other families in Troy. We hope to spend many more summers as a family there. Thank you for all you do for our city, and I hope we can come up with a way to save the Aquatic Center that makes sense for everyone. Next comment is from Marcy Curtis. Hi there, just saw this on nextdoor.com and am a day late. We love the Troy Aquatic Center, and I get a pass every year. Really missed it this year. Hope it sticks around. Next comment is from Karen Wiley. I'm in favor of keeping this amazing facility a part of Troy. It is as wonderful as our library and nature center. Next comment is from Greg O'Neill. I am a longtime Troy resident and a big fan of the library. Even though I cannot browse for books in the stacks until the restrictions are lifted, I still enjoy the library. I have found that the e-resources give me access to books and movies and music, although I haven't done that yet, at home through Hoopla and Overdrive. Since I have gone through the books I had at home but hadn't read until I get the time, the e-resources have been a godsend. I am also waiting for my turn in the hold queue to come up to enjoy some physical books delivered curbside. Especially now that we're limited in what we can do and where we can go, having the library as a resource for these COVID times is a blessing. Reading a good book is much better than binge watching shows on the streaming services. Comment 11 is from Lorraine Scussel. Just 1 second, sorry. Thank you for your response below. I really appreciate it. Kindly let me know if my comments below have to be stated by me on the City of Troy website under public comments to be read at our next council meeting, or if you will present them. 1, I am copying Paul Ajegba on this email, but it doesn't seem like MDOT is concerned about the noise levels at my home or my community. The traffic noise is deafening starting at 6 a.m., which wakes up my family every morning. I understand an MDOT study was conducted regarding the noise in my community, but the report stated that there were not enough homes to substantiate the cost of the wall, and there was not a large enough return on their investment. I guess our well-being is not that important. 2, the I-75 construction has not even been completed yet. Can you imagine what the noise level would be like if everyone was driving to their jobs as usual without COVID-19? I'm assuming that 70% of employees are working from home. What happens when they all return to their offices and all lanes of I-75 are open, which have been increased in number, adding to the noise? 3, I visit Firefighters Park from time to time and notice that there is going to be a memorial built for the Troy deceased firefighters. I was hoping that the City of Troy during this project would consider the traffic noise in my community and somehow include a cement wall or a barrier inside Firefighters Park around the new memorial as a barrier to the noise in my community. 4, the City of Troy is going to construct a new facility, so why not consider the noise in my community while you are completing this project? 5, my husband and I have recently purchased all new double pane windows across the back of our house at a substantial cost to us, but the traffic noise is still loud, and we can no longer sit outside or on our deck. 6, to complicate the matter, we have the Sunoco gas pipeline running through our backyard and are not allowed to dig or build anything along their property. 7, in addition, between the Sunoco gas pipeline and Firefighters Park are some woods belonging to the City of Troy where the trees are dying and nobody takes care of the property. 8, there is nowhere for us to construct or plant anything to cut down on the noise. 9, we purchased this home 4 years ago, which now seems to have been a big mistake. Are we stuck in this terrible situation because of the position of our lot in conjunction with I-75? 10, since MDOT is not going to address the noise, can the City of Troy address the situation by doing something within Firefighters Park to try to reduce the amount of traffic noise affecting me and my community? Firefighters Park is a big property and we need some noise protection here. Comment 12 is from Justin Wojcik. I contacted the Michigan DNR about problems I'm having with deer destroying landscaping on my property. They said that the community needs to reach out to take care of the deer problems in the city, and he's attached an email from MDOT, including allowing hunting events. I left a voicemail on Saturday with the city manager's office expressing concern for the lack of action that the City of Troy has taken on this matter after yet another piece of landscaping was destroyed. I need to understand what the city is going to do about this long term. Something needs to be done. We clearly have a deer problem in this city, and it's time for the city of Troy to step up and take action. I live just off Crooks in a well-developed neighborhood, and I don't back to any woods or nature area. And now we have 3 voicemails.
Yes, Mr. Baker. I forgot to leave you the rest of the message with the other one I left for you, and that's about the speeding on Boyd Street. Let me give you a little clarification of that. It's very imperative that you pay attention once and for all. The speeding with the school buses going to International Academy coming on to Boyd Street is unacceptable. Today we had a bus driver that drove down to the end of Boyd Street. She couldn't even back up because evidently she doesn't know how, or she can't drive. I filmed it. To Mr. Baker, you need to get with Richard Majeski. I'm not going to get with Richard Majeski because if I get with him, I'll end up in jail. So that's not going to happen. So how about we do this? You make sure that the Troy School District doesn't speed down a residential street. Remember, this is our street. You don't live here, Mr. Baker. We do. I had 3 neighbors come to me and talk to me about the speeding on the street already, including 3 of the bus drivers that came through here. It's unacceptable, Mr. Baker. I told you before, it's 80,000 people that live in the city of Troy approximately. If you can't be the captain of the ship, then you can't be the captain. Do you clearly understand that? I don't think that you have the ability to run the city of Troy. Mr. Miller runs the city of Troy. Oh, and hey, what about those free driveways that Mr. Slater gave away along with Mr. Miller? How about that one that you never investigated? In the paper, when you ran for office, you stated that you were going to get to the bottom of it. Well, there's a lady on our street that got that free driveway and that sidewalk improvement, both at the same time. When I asked Paul Evans about it, Paul Evans was really rude to me and hung up on me. All I wanted to see was the permit for the driveway at that same time of the sidewalk replacement. Mr. Baker, Janice Daniels was removed from mayor of Troy. You're getting close. You're getting really close. If you can't do something, I suggest you leave. Because we're not going to go put up with this all summer, or the rest of the fall, rather. It's just not going to happen. You have to show strength, okay? That's where it's at. Strength. Pay attention.
Clark Jr., I'd like to know when the mayor is I'm available for citizens of the city of Troy who have problems with the building and safety engineering department. Kent Clark, 5864.
Yes, good morning, Troy officer. This is Michael Shen in the residency is 4707 Holland. This is called for the council is to request we will levy the charge fee for summer camps. The reason for this one, I think you already know the pandemic, and a lot of state and government they take the action how to help the residency, how to help the people individual, each family. Like apartment rent payment, mortgage or something. So in the city now, the residents in Troy, city of Troy, we really want you can take some action, can show us you care about. You care about how the pandemic, affects the life of each family. And I saw a lot of government to take action, how to help us. And so far, I think you still charge a later fee, right, for the summer tax. So I request you waive the fee at least to the end of this year. It's very reasonable, very meaningful, and also do the same thing as other government is doing. And this is my thought, okay? This is my suggestion. Again, this is Michael Shen, phone number 248.
And I apologize, we do have one more email. 1 second. From State Representative Padma Kupa, the legislative update. The House and Senate passed a state budget that largely avoids sweeping draconian cuts to the programs and services Michigan residents need most, relying solely on modest reductions and funding shifts to balance the budget. The budget shortfall caused by COVID is not as bad as initially projected. This bipartisan budget agreement delivers on a commitment to keep Michiganders on their feet both now and after this crisis is over. But difficult choices will still need to be made for years to come, especially if the federal government doesn't do what they can. For small businesses, our office is still working to support small businesses. Visit, and then she provides a link to learn about grants available to get small businesses back on track. We continue to recognize small businesses in Troy and Clawson with a Small Business of the Month award. We have recognized several amazing businesses such as the Yarn Stop, Troy Gymnastics, Della's Maple Lane Florist. We are always looking for small businesses to spotlight on our SBOM. Please email or call my office. In addition, if there is ever anyone you would like our office to recognize in the form of a tribute, please email our office with your nominations, padmakupa@house.mi.gov, or call 517-373-1783. Regarding Senate Bill 757 and Senate Bill 117 passed both chambers. Senate Bill 757 has been signed into law. It could go farther based on what the clerks across the state have asked for, but will at least partially help ease the crush of expected ballots and would allow clerks in cities or townships with populations over 25,000 to begin processing absentee ballots prior to Election Day. It would also provide that clerks will notify voters of any reason their vote won't be counted within 48 hours. Senate Bill 117 would amend Michigan's election law to allow military personnel on active duty or as part of the Merchant Marines to submit their absentee ballots. Lansing news. The Capitol Commission has postponed their last 7 meetings and are yet to address the issue of what happened in April. Weapons are allowed in the Michigan State Capitol. Signs are not allowed because they can damage the decorative walls. Hopefully you have heard about what was revealed last week with the plot to kidnap the governor. We have a session tomorrow to pass legislation where we hope to address some of the issues which resulted from a recent state Supreme Court decision, such as unemployment benefits and necessary changes to the Open Meetings Act. Lori G. Bloom and MML have been in touch on this one. Financial Literacy Town Hall. We held a virtual event on Friday, October 9th to get information out to constituents on personal finance, teaching kids about financial literacy, and also cover the basics of the state budget. The idea for this town hall began when I retweeted a graph by Ron Fisher, MSU professor of economics who worked as deputy treasurer for the state of Michigan. We also had Beverly Meek from Flagstar Bank and Natalia Smirnova, professor of economics from UConn, who covered the other topics, answered questions from those who registered to the event, and panelists had some discussion with each other. If you missed it, you can still watch it on Facebook. Upcoming events. Our next event is Friday, October 16th on Facebook Live from 6 to 6:30 p.m. at MI Rep Padma Kupa. Take a minute to recognize Indigenous People Day. Indigenous people have persevered through centuries of racism, violence, and colonization. Today we celebrate their courage and strength. # Indigenous Peoples Day. That is all the public comments.
Okay. That concludes those that submitted public comment either via email, publiccomment@troymi.gov, or voicemail to 248-524-3302 by 4 p.m. today, which is the rules we've set forth while we're meeting virtually. Now gives us an opportunity, city administration or council, to reply or respond to any of the public comment we received today. I have a few, but anyone else like to go? City Manager Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. 4 things really quick. One, the mayor and I did attend a virtual meeting with I think it's the Beachview people, and Padma Kupa is putting together a meeting. I think it's this week. I'm going to attend it. I don't know if the mayor is, but since it is an MDOT project, we really recommended that they use their legislators. Secondly, we are investigating the deer situation. And the fact is, deer is wildlife, and there's not much we can do about it. If City Council would direct management and the city attorney to look into a deer call, we would do that. But I think that's kind of a tough way to go. Some other communities have done it, such as Ann Arbor. Boyd Street, the police department is continuing to look into that situation. And finally, I do not have a new driveway.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Additional council comment or reply? City administration? Oh, Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment on the Aquatic Center, since there were quite a few people that wrote in about it. And just so everyone is aware, at the last council meeting on September 21st, we did have some very lengthy discussion on the future of the Aquatic Center, both near term and long term. And just wanted to make sure all of our residents understood that at that discussion on the 21st, we did reaffirm the commitment for the necessary repairs to take place this fall, so that we can be prepared next spring, next summer to open if the pandemic allows us to open in a responsible manner. So we have made that commitment to putting in the investment in the short term, and you also heard us commit as we go through the budget cycle. And I think we'll probably talk about the budget a little bit later on the agenda and how we're going to prepare for the next budget cycle. But we did make that commitment to prioritize how we are going to fund the Aquatic Center in a very fiscally responsible and sustainable way. So I want to make sure residents know that we hear you loud and clear. You live in Troy, you move to Troy, you stay in Troy for these quality of life services, whether it's the library, the nature center, the historic village, or the Aquatic Center. We hear you. And know that we support all of those services. We just need to make sure that we're doing it in a way that doesn't imperil the rest of our city services. And I think this council and previous councils have been very mindful of that, and we will continue to be mindful of that. So wanted to make sure our residents take a little comfort in knowing that we do prioritize it, and we are listening, especially since many of us enjoy the Aquatic Center ourselves and as residents and have for many years. Another topic that came up that was also addressed in the last council meeting, probably the last 2 council meetings, was in regards to late payment and late fees for summer taxes for various reasons, some because of the postal delays, some because of hardships due to COVID. And while this council is very aware that times are difficult, we also find ourselves in a difficult situation that the city charter, which is essentially the city's constitution that we have to live by, does require that the taxes get collected at certain times and does not offer any relief whatsoever. We too are concerned about our residents who are dealing with difficult times, but we did have our city attorney look into that and see if there was any relief that we could provide, whether it was an extension of payments or some sort of program to provide relief. And unfortunately, what we would need to do is a charter amendment, which is no small process, but that's really the only way to affect change. So in the short term, there's really, unfortunately, not a lot of options on the table.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Very well put on both points. I see City Attorney Bloom wants to add something.
Just to add that, and even if there is a charter amendment, it would not be retroactive, so it would be prospective only. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified.
Thank you. Anybody else have any reply to public comment this evening? Most of what I was going to say has pretty much been covered. I do want to give a special appreciation to the people who call in or write and give their comment. It's gratifying to know that people are actively taking active participation in our council meetings and providing the comment, knowing that while we can't meet in person, they can get their points across the way they're doing it. And to have the continued support for the Aquatic Center, I think is, although we did make some decisions at our last meeting, we know we've got many decisions to make coming up as we move forward, and it's nice to hear the continued support, and also for the library as well. I know that as one of the residents' children said, I hate Corona, or something along those lines. I think it's definitely, I saw a lot of nodding heads when it was said, read into the record. And I think that, we're all still kind of, dealing with things that we never expected, especially as it relates to our public buildings. But I really see what Director Kathy Russ and her team have done at the library to try to provide service in the most streamlined way. And I also learned things myself. For example, I just recently downloaded the app Overdrive and am now getting ebooks that I can use as a library patron that I didn't ever use before. So that's been something new that I've learned as well. Just to be clear, when Mark was talking about the meeting that Representative Koopa is having as it relates to Beach Forest, and that was about the sound wall issues that resident had called in about or written about. And it is an ongoing concern, and we've been coordinating, because it is a state project, with our state representative, and have been doing everything we can to support that process as well. And we spoke about the late charges. I just wanted to make a brief comment on Mr. Nishai's email, only to say, obviously the points that he brings up are something every city should always be looking at. We certainly don't want to find ourselves in a position where we're living with ordinances that are not appropriate in today's world, especially. But a couple reminders. One, the city attorney doesn't have any independent discretion. The policies that she puts forth are the city's policies, and we are the policy setting body. So I don't want anyone to think that City Attorney Lori Grigboom is out there doing what she feels is best, and she has absolute discretion to do things. She follows the city's policies, and I want to make that clear. And also, in my 5 years working with Lori, I never once have thought of her or seen her treat her role as a city attorney for the city of Troy as her, quote, personal domain. Quite the opposite. I've seen her consistently be very, very neutral where necessary. I've even seen her, she's a resident of this city. I've seen her provide guidance with things that maybe she doesn't personally agree on as a resident, but she knows her role very well, and she doesn't treat that as her personal domain. So I don't feel that Lori needs to be defended because her record speaks for herself, but that one got to me a little bit, and I wanted to make a note of that. As for Mr. Walters, I appreciate your passion so very much, and you know what? Speeding drives me nuts like you don't know. I have young children who are out riding their bikes. I walk the dog out in the streets, and when I see a car go by me that's faster than it should be going, it upsets me, and I get just as angry as you do. That's one of the reasons a couple of years ago we brought the traffic enforcement back to our police department, because we care very much about that issue. And while it maybe isn't always working as quickly as you like or as we need it to, we do have people on it, as City Manager Miller just mentioned. And it's something, it affects every one of the residents in this city at times. So we are painfully aware of that, and we'll keep that up. And about the driveway issue, certainly, we talked about that a lot a year or two ago. I know Mr. Miller, I'm not sure you were accusing Mr. Miller of having any driveway ability or issues, but it's something that I continue to look into from our past. We've done reports on it. We have done investigations, and we continue to. It's not anything that's been dropped, and we'll continue to provide transparent updates to the city residents as necessary as new facts come to light. So just wanted to address that briefly. And again, thank everybody for their passion and for their public comment this evening. I think it's important and wonderful to see our city residents so engaged. So, if there's no other council comments this evening or city administration, we move on. There's no postponed items this evening, so we move on to regular business. First on regular business is mayoral appointments. I have one this evening, and I will resolve that the mayor of the city of Troy hereby appoints the following nominated person to serve on the boards and committees as indicated. I will nominate Tara Thompson-Cusack. Appoint Tara Thompson-Cusack to the Downtown Development Authority for the term expiring September 30, 2024.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, that the mayor of the city of Troy appoints Tara Thompson-Cusack to the Downtown Development Authority for the term expiring September 30th, 2024. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Motion carries. We thank Tara for her willingness to serve on that important board. That concludes mayoral appointments this evening. So we move on to city. There are no city council appointments either. So we move on to I2, which are board and committee nominations. I don't have any mayoral nominations this evening. I understand Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton has a couple of city council nominations this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to nominate to the Animal Control Appeal Board Jane Seeger and Doug Dombrowski for the terms expiring September 30th, 2023.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that City Council nominates Jane Seeger and Doug Dombrowski to the Animal Control Appeal Board for the term expiring September 30th, 2023. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Just real quick, Mr. Dombrowski submitted his application last night. So he has spoken at previous council meetings about chicken ordinance policies. So he was the perfect person for that. So just to let you know, for other council members that haven't seen his application, he turned it in last night.
I was very thankful to hear you nominate his name. I think that's a great addition. Any further discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries. No further nominations this evening?
That's all for tonight.
All right. That concludes I2 board and committee nominations. There's no request for closed session this evening, so we move on to I4, recognizing volunteer firefighters for service during COVID-19. This will be introduced by City Manager Mark Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of council. I also have Jeanette Medig, our Human Resources Director, and Dave Roberts, our Fire Chief, also on this meeting if there are questions that they'll need to assist. So we have proposed a hazard pay for volunteer firefighters. And the reasoning that I thought that this was very important is if they were employees, such as our police officers, our fire department command officers, 911 operators, lockup facility, we would get an automatic reimbursement from the state and the CARES Act from this first responder hazard pay premium program. With that, then we also provided $1,000 for the non-reimbursable persons from the state. In other words, the public works workers, the inspectors. So we wanted to work on something to recognize the volunteer firefighters, because if they were employees, the city would have been eligible for a reimbursement automatically for each of them. So we thought that the best way to do it was to provide additional funding to their station stipend. And as a reminder, each station does get a stipend to utilize on their staff, their building, or programs for the volunteers at that station. So we're suggesting that we provide a 23% increase, $15,000 one-time increase to the stipend for each station, and the total cost to the volunteer firefighters then would be $90,000 for all the stations. I think that this is very important because our volunteers were active and continue to work and train during the most active part of the COVID situation. With that, if there are any questions, we would be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Very good. Prior to there being a motion on the table and general discussion, are there any questions for City Manager Miller or anyone in City Management? Is Chief Roberts able to come on?
Only verbally, Mayor.
Hi, Chief Roberts.
Good evening.
Just wanted to say, I obviously you think this is good for your team throughout all the stations?
Absolutely. Yes. I think this is the best way, as Mark, City Manager Miller said, the best way that we can quote unquote reimburse our volunteers without being able to directly provide compensation. So this is the most common way that the volunteers can take advantage of that and make use of it.
Very good. I appreciate that. And since I have you on the line, for those of you who don't know, Chief Roberts has announced his retirement effective in February, and I'm looking at my computer screen. I can't even see you. It feels kind of awkward. But Chief, I mean, we'll talk more about this in the future. We've got a few months with you still, but I just want to thank you right off the bat for the amazing work you've done for this city. And I know how much the firefighters throughout our city respect you and depend on you, and you are going to be sorely missed. So that's not a question. So maybe I'll say, do you agree with that sentiment? That's a question.
All I can say is thank you very much. That's very nice of you, and I really appreciate it.
We'll do some more formal goodbyes later, I'm sure, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity without having you on here. So, any other questions before we move a resolution and have the general discussion? All right, someone like to move the resolution. Councilmember Erickson, go.
Gotta remember to unmute myself. Okay, I'd like to move I-4, recognizing volunteer firefighters for service during COVID-19 as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve I-4, recognizing volunteer firefighters for service during COVID-19 as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Abraham.
I just wanted to thank staff for coming up with a way that we can show our gratitude to our volunteer firefighters. They were rushing into emergency situations as much as our police, our public works employees were, and it seemed unjust that we could not do anything for them given the parameters of the program. So I was really pleased to see this on the agenda. I'm sure each station will find good use for those additional funds, and just want to express my gratitude to our volunteer firefighters. You do so much for public safety. The mere fact that you are volunteers, that we are mainly a volunteer firefighting community here in Troy, that saves millions of dollars in our budget, which means that we can use that for other things like putting in new roads, like supplementing our police department so that we can do things like add a traffic safety unit. We thank you, and I know sometimes you don't get all the recognition that some of our other public safety officers do, but our volunteer firefighters are essential to Troy's safety, and I'm so pleased that we can show our gratitude at least in this way.
So true, especially in a year when we couldn't have our annual Firefighters Appreciation Banquet, which is traditionally how we show our appreciation in a celebration event. So I echo everything Edna just said, and I'm sure most of us would. All of us would, of course. And Ellen from afar, because I know she feels just as passionately about the hard work that everybody does. Any other discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Oh, motion carries. Next on the agenda is I-5, schedule special meetings to develop budget priorities. That'll be introduced by City Manager Mark Miller. So I'll hand it back over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. And once again, good evening, Council. As Council may recall, right before COVID came in, I suggested that we alter the budgeting process which the previous city manager had utilized in developing budget strategies. And I had suggested that we needed to also engage council and residents earlier in the fiscal year to allow time for the development of priorities, budget recommendations to be actually be used in the development of each department's budget, which starts when we come back to work after the winter holiday season in the first week of January. So I sat down and thought, you know what, this obviously is not a very good way to conduct, to do citizen engagement via this type of meeting, virtual meetings. But luckily, we are still working on doing a survey, which will have questions about the budget on the survey, and where you will have more time than the library survey, so that you will be able to have more input into that. And so I'm confident we're going to be able to maybe not have this information available from the survey when we actually sit down and have the proposed study meetings, but we will have them when we actually prepare the budget and also approve the budget. So what I am suggesting is that we do 2 meetings to educate council on the budget, to receive public comment, and then identify priorities. And to be honest, we would also highlight certain things, especially from what I call the big spenders, which is public works, engineering, police department, and fire department. So I thought I identified 2 available dates in November where we don't have meetings, and that is November 16th and November 30th. And those are Mondays. And I'm going to leave it open to City Council what time you would like to meet, whether it be 6 o'clock or 7:30, our normal time. But I think that this is very important. I think council would be surprised how much staff really wants to get in front of you and propose what they're working on. And I know I don't want to, I'm going to tease you a little bit, and the police department is biting at their lip to sort of talk and engage with council a little bit about body cam, as an example. It's a big issue that costs a lot of money. There's a lot of floating parts, and it may take multiple years to be able to actually fund it. So I think that's just one example where staff was excited to interact with council. So beyond that, I'm going to turn this over to you, Mayor and Council, to deliberate if you want to meet, which I think you do, and what the days and the times. And I'll answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Very good, Mark. Thank you. And yeah, I think we probably will want to meet, although can't say for sure until votes are counted, I guess. But any questions before we have any general discussion at this point? Backup memo was there, and I know that it's pretty clear on the purpose in Mark's presentation just now. Any questions? Well, to get the conversation going, I'm going to move I-5, schedule special meetings to develop budget priorities, and I'll say resolve that the Troy City Council hereby schedules 2 special meetings for the purpose of developing city budget strategies with city staff. The meetings will be held on November 16th, 2020, I'll say at 7:30 p.m., and November 30th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, that we approve I-5, schedule special meetings to develop budget priorities. It's just read into the record. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
I was going to suggest the exact same thing. So same dates and same time. So that works for me. We'll see if the rest of the council is good. on that.
Any other discussion? I'll say, I think, you know, two of us on here tonight have lived through 5 years at least of budgets, and we've gone through big elaborate council retreats to talk about budgeting, to more focused things, to what we did in the winter here, which I actually thought was very streamlined and very really focused on what we needed to do. So I think you've been moving things in the right direction for us, City Manager Miller, and I'm very excited. Although, you know, here we are adding meetings. I know that's a lot of work for city staff. It's extra time on our and everybody's schedule. But I think it, you know, obviously the budget is the most important thing we do as city council here in Troy. And to have the opportunity to have presentations and to be able to give input 6 months prior to when we'd be approving a budget, I think is phenomenal and can only have great rewards for our city and our residents. And also, you know, as a reminder, 5 of us on this screen were just on the ballot within the past 11 months in one way or another. So we've had a lot of community engagement. We come in before we do a survey with an idea of what's on the minds of our residents. So I think that there'll be a lot of good information that we can work with. So I'm thankful for you putting this together. I'm excited to hear about what thoughts and plans are as we move through COVID and hopefully move out of COVID, obviously. Any other discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga.
Yes.
Motion carries. Very good. We'll get those on the calendar, right? Okay. Next up is I6, Welcoming America membership, also introduced by City Manager Miller.
Thank you, and I'm scrolling here. Hold on one second. Okay, Mayor and Council, before you, we have prepared a memo, and I would note that the new assistant to the city manager, Sarah Ames, helped contribute towards this memo, her first one. And it outlines the types of memberships there are for Welcoming America. The first one, the general membership, is more for a one-person member, so that's really not possible. But then there's the core membership of $1,500, and there's a newsletter, discounts to conferences, participation in advocacy campaigns, and then member rates for the Welcoming Institute, and a lot of other things. And then there's a premium membership for $2,500, and it is just more in depth. We do have money available in the membership and dues line item for this if you so desire to move forward with membership.
Very good. Well, it's appropriate that we're doing a welcoming resolution, so I can welcome Sarah Ames to Troy City Hall, and thank you Sarah for your participation in this memo as well, and we look forward to meeting you in person at some point. But it's an important role, and what people don't often realize is that assistant to the city manager spends a lot of time interacting with residents, so you may get an email or a phone call from Sarah at some point. So if you do, give her a welcome to Troy. We appreciate her being here. Any questions for Mark? Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first question is a clarification. In the memo, it stated that our previous membership in 2017 was at the general level, but it sounds like from what you said that is something only available to individuals. Is that true?
You know, I'm looking at this right now, and I was incorrect. You can do the $200 membership, because these are for local governments. I was wrong. I apologize.
Okay. Then just had a couple other questions to follow on that. Is just wanted to ask, has there been any thought about, planning to develop a strategy to utilize that membership, and could Global Troy be brought into that? And so I asked that because it seems that in 2017 with the general membership, there still was, I think, some of the challenges with it is there wasn't really a plan put in place of how best to maximize that and how to really partner with Global Troy to get that information out and even to council. So just wondered if some thought has been given to that.
Thank you. Well, you did have a question early on, and the answer to the question is yes. And what was happening is Sarah Ames will be the city representative to this body, and she'll start working on this, and she'll work with the Troy Global Advisory Committee to utilize this membership. And so, yes, it will be utilized via Sarah Ames and the Global Troy Advisory Committee.
Excellent. And we could also take part in some trainings and various resources as well.
Yes, let's just imagine if Sarah Ames were to go, we have education money in the manager's budget available.
Very good. Any other questions? More questions? Anyone like to move a resolution? I bet Councilmember Chamberlain Karenga does. She just had to find it. All right.
I will move it. I'll move I-6, welcoming American membership at the general membership level at a rate of $200.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Chamberlain Krienga, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve I-6, welcoming American membership with a general membership level at the rate of $200. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain Karenga, for bringing this up in previous meetings. Global Troy is, I think, something has a lot of potential to be a critical part of our community. We're one of the most diverse communities in the state of Michigan and in the country. And I think this is a good first step to kind of reinventing that committee and advancing our global outlook in Troy. So thank you.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krienga. You muted yourself. You were unmuted and you muted.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton. I just want to explain a little bit of my thinking behind this. And I think, as Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton said, is that it's great to just to start and to see what we can do with the Global Troy Committee in partnership with Sarah, recognizing Sarah is new and we're grateful to have her on board. And I also recognize it's COVID. There's still a lot of competing priorities going on. And so my thinking was, let's start small and build up. And if it makes sense to move to a higher level of membership in the following year, to be open to that possibly. But I think the important thing, and what fell through, I believe, last time in 2017, is we were focused on getting the membership, but less focused on a plan of implementing that membership. How we used it was we committed to creating a international day as a part of Troy Days. That was part of our welcoming event. But in terms of our strategy of how to utilize those resources to make sure that they were communicated to Global Troy, for Global Troy to have a role in creating that sort of plan, and to be able to loop in council, to attend conferences, to really seize the technical assistance that is offered, I think that was lacking. And so given it's a difficult year with COVID, I don't want us to overcommit, so would be happy to start small and see what we can do, kind of going in very strategically and see what the future holds.
I think that's a very good strategy, and both of you have said, Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton and Councilmember Chamberlain Craig have kind of encapsulated things very well. And I think poor Sarah's got a lot of pressure as she comes into our city, but we have definitely been, Global Troy has played an active role in some things and a less active role in other places where maybe it should have over the past few years. And it'd be nice to reimagine a little bit where we go with that committee, because I do think it's a very important and valuable asset in our city, and it has been underutilized. I know that they're anxious to be meeting again once things stabilize a little bit with meetings and how we handle that process. And this will give them a good, I'm on that committee as well, but it give us a good starting point to where we need to focus our energies to go and come back and present something to council. So looking forward to that for sure. And I also, while I'm thinking of it, I think most of us thought that our membership that we had in 2017 was being renewed in perpetuity, or and I would ask that if we, assuming this is approved tonight, that we have somebody keep on track of when it expires next year so that we can maybe have it as part of the consent agenda if that's what we want to move, or whatever we need to do so that we don't find ourselves with a lapsed membership and having to chase down whether or not it needs to be renewed again. But I'm sure that's already in the plan. Right, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. Any other discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, next on, that concludes regular business. We move on to the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda for discussion this evening? Or for any other purposes? Councilmember Abraham, did you want to move the consent agenda this evening?
I'd love to. I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham and supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda report packet. Any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
I just wanted to briefly mention that part of this was CARES Act funding between SMART and the City of Troy for our Troy Ride program. And I just wanted to just shout out to the Troy Road Ride program, which has continued to function during the pandemic, and how grateful I am to the drivers there and for the hard work they've done to help serve our community and to do it safely, to keep it clean, keep it sanitized. It's such a incredible service to our community. Thank you, Mayor Baker, and you've advocated for that program, and together we've helped increase its funding quite a bit. And unfortunately, its first full year of implementation under the new system got stopped a little bit because of the pandemic, like so many things. But I'm just incredibly grateful to that program and to the drivers there that have done so much, and glad to support approving the CARES Act funding for them.
Great comment to pull that one out. Absolutely. Ironically, I've been seeing Troy Ride buses out and about town more than I ever have. So they're doing something out there, and I do see the drivers, and they're wearing their PPE, and I see the passengers. They're doing everything they need to do to be safe, but they're also getting their needs met, which I think, as a governing body, if you can meet needs of your citizens, you're doing something right. So I think Troy Ride is an excellent thing. So great comment, Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga,
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton.
Yes.
Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved. There are no memorandums and future council agenda items this evening. We've already handled public comment. There are no council referrals, so we move on to reports. Any comment from council members on the reports this evening? There are several. Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I was hoping that our city attorney could comment a little bit about the resumption of public meetings in light of the very dynamic rulings that we've had from the Michigan Supreme Court, and just comment a little bit on, what's latest news.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Please, City Attorney Bloom.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. And again, as Councilwoman Abraham has noted, this is evolving day by day. In fact, today, actually very late this afternoon, too late for us to really have a cancellation and provide the public notice that was necessary for this meeting. The Supreme Court, Michigan Supreme Court, issued an order that held that the governor's executive orders, their opinion in validating her executive orders is effective immediately. Because of that, virtual meetings, there is some confusion as to whether or not virtual meetings are allowed under the Open Meetings Act. Representative Padma Kupa had earlier indicated that the State House is going to be taking up a bill tomorrow that will hopefully fix that. That's House Bill 6207. And I would just also indicate that the Senate last week on Thursday did take and pass a substitute version of Senate Bill 1108. They passed that basically on a bipartisan basis. I think there were 2 votes that did not vote in favor of it, but they did pass that on Thursday, October 8th. So we're hoping for more clarity tomorrow, but unfortunately, we are not sure that our Planning Commission meeting should go forward. And I think that there are plans right now, just because of the uncertainty of it and because we cannot predict what's going to be happening tomorrow with the State House of Representatives, that for every, just as a proactive measure, we believe that the Planning Commission meeting tomorrow will be canceled. If in fact the legislation does pass and the governor does sign the bill, then it will be retroactive to April 30th, which is consistent with the date that the governor had her powers until. So she could issue an order and did issue an order, and that was effective until April 30th. So this would be from April 30th onward and would be retroactive. So that would validate all of the decisions that have been taken by in a virtual meeting. So we would not have to you would not have to reenact any of the decisions that had taken place. You would not have to redo public hearings or anything like that, should that pass. And I did send some support. I've been working with the Michigan Municipal League's Michigan Association of Municipal Attorneys Legislative Committee to try and get this law in place as quickly as possible. And very grateful to the Senate for passing it, and we're very hopeful that the House will do the same tomorrow.
Thank you for that report. City Manager Miller and then Councilmember Brooks, if that's okay.
Just to clarify, so the Community Development Director, Brent Savedant, and Assistant City Attorney Julie Dufresne were informed of this evening, and they're going to work together and with both Lori and I to actually cancel the meeting and then issue a press release as early in the day as possible. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Brooks, do you have a question? Comment?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes. Your picture's a little delayed, but your voice is coming through fine.
Okay, sorry. I don't know. It always freezes when I talk. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Attorney Bloom. So I have some questions as far as how the Supreme Court, well, I mean, I've been following it pretty closely as far as how the Supreme Court decision is affecting kind of residents as a whole. Can you speak a little bit more on that? Like how, there was, other orders such as the mask wearing, limiting indoor spaces. Does all of that fall away because of the emergency orders considered invalid?
Yes, thank you for that. So the Supreme Court opinion covers the governor's issuance of executive orders only. So there have been orders issued by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services that address the social distancing, which is still required, and wearing of masks, which is still required, and the limits in public in buildings, the limits that basically are very consistent with what the limits that were imposed in the governor's executive orders. So thank you for bringing that up and providing us the opportunity to clarify that yes, masks are still required just as they were before. Social distancing is still required just as it was before, and there are limits, and that's one of the reasons why it's very difficult to facilitate a meeting such as a Planning Commission meeting where we anticipate that there will be a number of persons present in a live forum. Hopefully that addressed your questions, Councilmember Brooks.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions regarding this matter or comments on the reports? I've said it probably dozens of times over the years, but sometimes the best information is in these department reports. So if you have access to a computer, please look at these reports. There's good information in there. And I can't tell what's going on. Councilmember Abraham, there we go. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I realized you didn't see me raise my hand. I did have one more comment, just looking at the department reports. As always, we do have the library millage on the November ballot. I know everyone is extremely cognizant that there is an election next month. And while we may be thinking of it at a national level or at a state level, we do have some local matters on the ballot. And the one, of course, that is near and dear to Troy specifically is the library millage. And so wanted to draw attention to the library millage community engagement update. In addition to the memo that we've seen over the past few weeks and past few months outlining how we would engage the community regarding the millage and how we're going to communicate, whether it was some Zoom meetings or mailers. What's different in this report is a number of citizen questions that have come in that staff has responded to very thoroughly and very timely about the millage. Some questions that have come up from maybe those that read about it in the newspaper but couldn't participate in the Zoom meeting. And I want to call attention to it because there is a wealth of information, a lot of questions that residents may be thinking of and maybe wasn't sure who to direct them to. I highly encourage you to go into that report to read some of the questions. I know one of the ones that has come up very frequently is about, not specifically about the millage, but about the library hours and looking for clarification on, why a millage is being sought when the library is not currently open. And so want to, remind residents that part of the reason that the library is closed is partly because of the pandemic and its impact on staffing levels at the library and making sure that the staffing levels are where they need to be. And the circulation department took a 50% hit, and that was directly tied to staff attrition post-pandemic. And while the staffing needs are being addressed and training is underway and we're filling those roles, want to remind our residents that is separate from the millage. If the library were to open, in the near term, we would still have funding issues at hand, and that the two are not directly related. And so if there is a desire to see the library open, and the millage 1.1 is intended to be a 7-day library operation, that they take that into consideration as they look at their ballot, either on November 3rd or one of the 31,000 AVs that have gone out already.
Thank you. Very, very good. Councilmember Chamberlain-Krianga.
Just briefly to echo what Councilmember Abraham just shared about all that our Troy Public Library is doing, I want to call attention to the departmental report. It's O2F, the Storybook Trail Edition to Raintree Park, which is all about a collaboration of the Troy Public Library with the Friends of the Troy Public Library, along with Department of Public Works, really bringing the library and rich children's stories out into our public spaces, which we know during COVID, a lot of our residents really value and are using. So just as a reminder, our library has been so creative and collaborative and really bringing all that they have to our residents, even to our parks. So I look forward to checking that out with my young son, and I hope others will as well.
Good. Very good. I see Director Kathy Russ has popped in. Kathy, did you want to add something to that?
I just want, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for all your lovely comments. I really appreciate them. I just want to mention that the Storybook Trail was funded by the Friends of the Troy Public Library. They paid for that, and the funds that they gave us allowed us to make it happen. Keegan Selecki, who's the head of youth services, worked with the Parks Department, great partnership. And so, but I just really want to make sure that the Friends get the shout out because they made it, they paid for it, made it happen. So thank you.
Before you click off, Kathy, I just want to say thank you. And Assistant City Manager Bruner's not on tonight, but both you and Bob did a very nice job with the virtual town halls. You've done 2 of them, and you were both, you answered the hard questions. You did it with the right attitude. A smile always helps. But you gave a lot of good information to residents who had very valid concerns, ranging from, I watched them both. They were all over. I mean, really just differences of opinions and thoughts and good questions that sometimes people don't often get just from a postcard or from something they read in a newspaper that's got limited, circulation at this point. So thank you for doing that. And I just want to say good job.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time, and Bob is great.
All right. Thanks, Gabby. Any other comments on the department reports this evening? Back before I was blindly not seeing that Councilmember Abraham was trying to say something, I was saying that please go to these reports. They do have some of the best information in our agenda, and there's always something to learn. There's like a letter of appreciation to City Clerk Aileen Dixon. It's always nice to read, so make sure you check that one out as well. All right, that concludes reports this evening. Next up is council comments. Are there any council comments this evening? Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton. I think I can guess on what it's about, but go ahead.
I'm going to do my shout out to our clerk's office that I do at every meeting. The election is 3 weeks and a day away, or I guess the election is now actually, but the end of the election is 3 weeks and a day away. The absentee ballot pickup option, which happened about 2 weeks ago, at the clerk's office, was a smashing success. I don't know the final numbers on how many people came and picked up their absentee ballots, but it was several hundred. It got national press coverage, and it was just a fantastic event to give a safe option for our voters to pick up their ballots. And right now, myself, I went the first day that it was available, which was Thursday, September 24th, and anyone who hasn't applied, anyone can go to the clerk's office. They're open 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on weekdays. You can go apply, register to vote, apply for an absentee ballot, and vote the ballot right there. You can do that you can register to vote every day, even on election day or on final election day, but you can apply for your absentee ballot and pick it up and vote it there all the way up to 4 p.m. the day before the final day of the election. But I also wanted to shout out that this Wednesday at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. there's another drive-through clerk's office, and there'll be one the following Wednesday, the Saturday after that, and I think the Saturday after that, Halloween. There'll also be a drive-through clerk's office. So there's lots of options to go to register to vote, to turn in your absentee ballot. You can always use our 4 drop boxes. There's 2 at City Hall, 1 in the library, 1 at the community center. And you can also vote on election day if you want. And you can call our clerk's office at any time. They'll answer a ton of questions about many different situations. Like if for example, I found out if your ballot's lost in the mail or you lose your ballot, you can spoil that one and you can vote a new one either on election day or up to until, actually, correction, because of the new law that was just passed, the SB 757, it's 10 a.m. that you can spoil your ballot on the election day, because ballots are now turned in, or you can now, they can start the process of sorting the ballots the day before the election. They can't count them until election day. Mayor Baker for helping lead for us to pass a resolution to request the legislature to support that, which they did, and that'll allow counting absentees to be a little ahead of time. But you can only spoil your ballot up to 10 a.m. the day before the election. Now, if you want to, you can still vote up to 4 p.m. the day before the election and request an in-person absentee. But that about sums up most of the options. Feel free to bring in any questions to council or the clerk. And I love our clerk's office, and they do a great job to make sure everyone in our...
It's like the Wikipedia version. That was amazing. Wow. Aileen's like Please don't call on me. I'm done. No, I mean, I have to say, when final election day of November 3rd is trending on Twitter, we know it started with David Hamilton. Final election day. I've never heard that. So it is still election day. And as a reminder, yes, all 31 polling precincts will be open in Troy
on November 3rd as well, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. City Clerk Dixon, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? I did have a question for you. I actually had a resident text me earlier today and said, hey, can I go to City Hall anytime like I normally would and vote an absentee ballot? And I said, you know what, I'll ask in my council meeting tonight to see what City Clerk Dixon will answer that. So, you good?
Yeah, so the answer to that is yes. Even though the building is closed, we are there. And anyone can show up. They call the clerk's office. Someone will come down and help them at the door. And we've been doing it all day long for weeks now. So, yeah, and it's just a simple call, and then we can come down and if they don't have their application, we can bring them one, know how to fill it out, and then we can get their ballot for them and hand it to them. And then they can even go and sit in their car and vote their ballot and drop it right back off in the drop box. So they can have it all done in one trip to City Hall. And to clarify, Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton's comment, there were 1,200 ballots that were handed out during the 8 hours total that we did the pickup event. It was amazing. So if I know a couple council members stopped by and said hi and saw the line all the way down Civic Center Drive. So it was a huge success. I would think that thanks to everyone who helped with that, and to everybody who supported or came out and just took pictures and cheered us on. So it was great.
And it is nice to see Troy in national news for a good reason. So we appreciate that. So thank you for that. And just because you can't go into the building and vote in one of the ballot in the hallway ballot booths up by the city clerk's office, you could pretty much do everything that you normally did, even from the comfort of your car. If you just go and call, and I'll facilitate that for you. So that's great. Thank you for that. And Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, thank you for being a constant advocate on behalf of voting and the city clerk's office. And it's good we need to hear it every time. So only one more meeting after this before final election day. So I don't know what you're going to do after that, but you'll come up with something. Any other council comments this evening? Councilmember Chamberlain-Craga.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two separate comments. First, I just want to start by recognizing that today is Indigenous Peoples Day, which has gained recognition around the country. And I know of at least one leading organization in Troy who has closed its offices today to honor it for the first time ever. And I know that organization has embarked on a journey to really recognize and build understanding of the history and culture of Native Americans on the land in which we reside in Oakland County. And when I was in college, I worked as a summer school tutor for the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. So this topic is close to my own heart. However, I recognize that I know very little about Native American history and culture in southeastern Michigan. And so to learn more, I did recently reach out to the Troy Historical Society, and I'm grateful to Jen Peters, the Troy Historic Village's new executive director. Welcome, Jen. It's a pleasure to have you on board. And Jen shared a little bit about what she knows, as well as their interest in really deepening their knowledge in collaboration with local Native American partners. So on this day, I just want to affirm my own commitment to trying to learn more about Native American history and culture on these lands. And I hope our city would consider embarking on a similar journey down the road in partnership with, again, our Global Troy Advisory Committee, which can be a strong partner in this regards. On a separate, very different note, but actually very related, because it relates to the beauty of the land of Troy that we love, is I want to draw attention to the Philip Hubbard Park Trail that is in the Troy Civic Center. As you might recall, there was a recent Troy Times article highlighting two men, Jeff Kerr and Jeff Kelly, who have been voluntarily caring for this trail for some time. And this past weekend, I happened to be at the Troy Family Fest with my son. And I do want to thank our Troy Parks and Rec for a great event, very family friendly, with social distancing, and we all felt very safe. But when I was there, I saw Jeff repeatedly, firsthand, pushing a wheelbarrow. Each of them had with wood chips back and forth, caring for this trail on a Saturday on their own time. And as they finished their work, I went out to speak with them and just really thank them for their service to the city. And well, first I wanted to find out, were they the Jeff and Jeff who were in the article? And then just, and they were. And of course, to really thank them for all that they're doing, and wanted to just really do more to recognize their work. But they both made it clear to me that really their goal is to raise awareness about the trail and to get more volunteers to help out with it. And so that sort of started questions that I had in terms of what is the city's relationship to this trail. And so I did ask last week, I sent in a question just trying to ask and understand to what extent have we maintained the trail in the past or not. And I am grateful for Dennis Trantham, who is the city's facilities and grounds operations manager, for sharing some information. And it turns out the city of Troy has had limited staffing really to maintain the trail, and that has been due to staff reduction since the Great Recession, unfortunately. And the trail being a loop, as I learned, is not part of the wider Troy Trail system, because that was also my question, is this part of Troy Trails? You know, how might we tap into the resources and support we're aiming to put into that? But it's not part of it. But the issue still remains, as I talked to Jeff and Jeff, is that there are parts of the trail, they said it's the western side, that is a half mile in, and for them, they just really don't have the capacity. It's a lot of work to manually take wheelbarrows a half mile in to dump chips and care for the trail and then come back. And they were told by the city that they're not able to use motorized vehicles, which I know that's the policy on our trails, and I'm sure there's liabilities with that. But the question that I just would like to ask the city is there potential to look into helping with this particular aspect in terms of getting deep into the trail where they're not able to get in? And also would just welcome some discussion on our longer term plan in terms of maintaining trails like this, and if there are other trails like this in Troy that we just haven't been able to maintain, but might need a little bit of love, because these are the things that, of course, especially with COVID, people just really appreciate being out in these green spaces in our beautiful city. Thank you.
It's a good question. Of course, I remember that article. My first thought was I didn't realize we had city trails that were being maintained by private residents. I understand the budget constraints and why that would be, but I don't know if City Manager Miller, if there's any information you can give tonight, or if you can maybe provide some additional information in a report to us on what that may look like to work on that. That particular trail, it is a loop. It's beautiful. I've run back there over the years, and it's very peaceful and surprisingly remote. in a pleasant way. So, City Manager Miller?
I feel bad to reveal this. I didn't even know that people were volunteering and working on that until last week. So I really don't know much about it. I'll have to get back with a report to all of council about it.
Okay. We appreciate it. Any other council comments? Councilmember Erickson Gall.
Thank you, Mayor. This past weekend, during our beautiful October weather, I had the pleasure of attending a cricket match that was not held in Troy. It was held in Rochester Hills at Bloomer Park. They have a beautiful cricket pitch there. While I was there, I met many residents of Troy who are playing cricket in Rochester Hills. And any of those of us who've been around to our parks in Troy have seen people playing cricket in our various park areas. And it was explained to me that although we do have some spacious open places that can be managed to be used as a cricket pitch, we don't currently have the facility for doing that in Troy. And I would like us to, as we're going forward, to think about, given how incredibly popular that sport is for many of our Troy residents, that we consider, especially as we're going into our budget talks, to think about including a plan to incorporate a regulation cricket pitch in the city of Troy. There's definitely a lot of support from that from our residents. Obviously, There's financial issues. Space is another problem. I was explained to me that to have an ideal size pitch, the entire field itself, the pitches, the thing in the center. I'm learning all about cricket. It's fascinating. The field itself needs to be a circle with a radius of 75 yards. So you're talking a space that is quite substantial. So I know this was something that I was told was raised probably 20 years ago. I wasn't part of the discussion then. I don't think we were even living in Troy at that time. I was told that it was when Mr. Pryor was our mayor. So it's been a long time since that's been discussed. I think the time is ripe for it. So I would like us to keep that in mind as we go into our budget discussions, especially in terms of our Parks and Recs department, to look into the possibility of creating that, which would be a benefit to our city and to many of our residents here.
Thank you, Councilmember Erickson Gall. City Manager Miller, is that something that could be maybe started initially in a report, or at least, I mean, our meetings are next month and we just scheduled. I don't know if that could be part of there where we can discuss that. Is that something that's doable? I've also heard that from residents a lot. And I think it would be very well received here if feasible.
The general answer is yes. I think us doing a report would be important. The issue of cricket has come up actually more than once over the 20-year period, and I've been involved with it. The field, for the lack of better terminology, is incredibly huge. It's actually difficult to find a park where we could actually fit one in. But we did it. So over the years, we have provided at 2 different locations the pitch area, which is sort of just so that you can bat without really playing cricket in total. But we need to look at our Parks and Recreation plan and see what was identified in there. But we definitely can do a quick report, come back to council, and look at the Parks and Rec plan, and then look at the budgeting process.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any other council comments this evening? Councilmember Abraham. Big, strong hand raised there. I saw that one.
Thank you, Mayor. So because it is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I did want to encourage all women to get their mammograms. It is vitally important. It is vitally critical that you do so, and you do so at an early age so you have a good baseline. And then, once you're 40, you get them on a yearly basis. Or depending on your family history, you may start doing it earlier. Mammogram technology has changed quite a bit over the past few years. I mean, 5 years ago, it was not very common to get a 3D mammogram, and now it's pretty common, and insurance covers it. Recently, I had a loved one get a diagnosis of breast cancer, and it was diagnosed at stage 0. It was the size of a grain of salt. That is what the mammogram picked up on. Her physician indicated that it would have been years before it would have ever been noticed in a self-exam. And at that point, it would have been stage 1 or stage 2, where the treatment plans are quite different from what it is if you catch it early on. It's a little uncomfortable. It lasts about a minute, but it is so worthwhile to do. Do it for your family. They want to make sure that your mom, your sister, your aunt, your cousin are around to watch their kids grow. This is a cancer that, if caught early, is extremely treatable. It doesn't need to get to stage 4. It doesn't need to get metastatic. If you catch it early, the treatment plan is very clear-cut as far as cancer treatments go, and it's extremely effective, and you can live a virtually normal life again within months. So please, women, get your mammograms, and to men, encourage your wives, daughters, sisters, mothers to get them as well. It is a family issue. It's something that we need to be very mindful of. It's not something that we could or should put off. Make the commitment this month. to schedule your appointment. I know I've got mine that I need to schedule, and I hope other residents who are hearing this will as well.
Thank you, Edna, and thank you for sharing your personal stories there. Councilmember Brooks.
Pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And kind of on a health note, I also wanted to mention that as we enter into cold and flu season, I do recommend that everyone get their flu shots. And, you know, as we move from outdoor to indoor, it's even more important to really adhere to safe practices, you know, limit indoors, you know, limit the number of people indoors, wear your mask, try to safely social distance. Because as I tell people, it's easier to prevent disease than it is to treat it. So we want to try to stay as healthy as possible. The other thing that I wanted to mention was I think there's still a little over 2 weeks that we can still complete the census. And so I know there was a lot of back and forth with the courts, but I believe that it's still going to be October 31st is the deadline, is my understanding at this point. And Troy actually has a decent response rate. It's better than the overall state. However, we should still continue to push and improve our response rate as much as possible. And then the third thing, sorry if it's loud in the background, but the third thing with City Manager Miller, the Citizens Academy. Is that I'm assuming that this year we're not having Citizens Academy for the city of Troy, or what's the status with that?
City Manager Miller?
When assistant to the city manager Drew Benson left, he was part of that team, and so we're not doing it this fall, but we're going to regroup, and part of Sarah Ames's responsibilities will be to start that back up. We do have interest. We have people on a waiting list.
It was a great program last year. Was that last year? It was last fall.
Yeah, I participated in it last year.
That's right. It was very good. I'm sure there's great interest. And poor Sarah, she's got a lot to do. So, but she can do it. So she can do it. So, any other council comments this evening? I just had a quick one. I had the opportunity yesterday, in a very safe manner with proper protection and outdoors, to present a proclamation to a resident of ours who turned 100 this year. And she's lived in Troy for 65 years. Marge Qualman is her name. We had a wonderful conversation. She likes to watch our council meetings. I don't know if she's watching tonight, but she was very sweet. And former Mayor Gene Stein happened to be taking her out to dinner, if you can believe that. And so I stopped by and presented the proclamation, and that was on behalf of the city and city council. So I wanted to make sure you were all aware that I did present that to her yesterday, and she was very appreciative and I got to be honest, I was there, and she was quick to talk to me about the trees and the easement and her street, and wanted to make sure everything was okay. So 100 years and going very strong in the city of Troy. So congratulations, Marge. Happy birthday, and we wish you continued good years and health. I think that's it for council comments. There's no closed session this evening. So again, a reminder, I want to thank our healthcare heroes and first responders and frontline workers. You have all done so much for us over these past 7 months and continue to do it. And we do what we can to appreciate you publicly and privately. But again, thank you. Anyone knows a lot of people in the city of Troy who are working hard to keep us safe. So thank you. God bless everybody, and have a good night. Meeting's adjourned.
Good night.